Michael Viewmaster Morlan here, and welcome to Galactic Inquiry. Coming up, Cloud Imperium's Rob Irving gets his hair cut. Wes Bell is back with the whole truth, Star Citizen fan art, videos, and more. Coming up right after this. Hey, welcome to Galactic Inquiry, the weekly webcast where we feature you, the community of Star Citizens. Want to give a special thanks to Steffan for scoring us some of that whiskey candy before it made it to the Austin CIG office. Don't tell him about that. And thanks also for that awesome graphics card, Steffan. Now we can kick everybody's booty in the verse. Listen, also a big shout out to our now 352 Patreons, and a special thanks to some of our most generous supporters, Heinrich Kumlin, Michael Nightingale, BB, and Bjorn Christian. So much thank you. You're all keeping the lights on in Austin, Texas. You know, later in the show, we got Rob Irving, and he gets his Samson and Delilah on. But right now, the word of the week.
Word of the week. The word of the week is Starshade.
In your ongoing search for Earth-like planets, you might want to get one of these. One of the obstacles to finding smaller exoplanets in the habitable zone, sometimes called the Goldilocks zone, you know, not too hot, not too cold, but just right, is the glare of the nearby star. A starshade solves all your problems. A space station about the size of half a football field, built in the shape of a giant sunflower, the Starshade is uniquely designed to shade space telescopes from star glare in the Goldilocks zone. In 1952, Lyman Spitzer got the inspiration for his design from a solar eclipse. Lyman understood that light would bend around a solid screen, so he designed the petals of a starshade in just the right way to minimize glare and preempt space curvature. The starshade will deploy about 50,000 kilometers from a space telescope. Jeremy Kasdan, an astronomer at Princeton University, has been testing the technology successfully for several years and is confident that it will bring us family portraits of other solar systems. Well, someday. And now, here's the news. And in more from the world of real aerospace, ready to go to Mars? This couple is. Jane Poynter and Tabor McCallum founded their private space company, Paragon Space Development, to send 2 people on a trip to the Red Planet. The mission, called Inspiration Mars, and spearheaded by millionaire space tourist Dennis Tito, was inspired by another major project, Biosphere 2. Our intrepid duo were 2 of the 8 scientists who lived for 2 years inside the habitat, even after an emergency required flooding the environment with oxygen 16 months into the experiment. The Inspiration Mars mission is planned as a round-trip flyby of the planet, much like early Apollo missions around the moon. The much longer distance, however, presents some new challenges for Poynter and McCallum, including how to protect themselves against deadly radiation, how much food, water, and air to bring, and how to store their waste. On top of that, they must wait for the U.S. Congress to agree to fund the project and to allow their use of the NASA Space Launch System and the Orion crew vehicle for transport. Well, good luck with that. Closer to home, Wes Bell brings us some insight into the recent Gladius sale. Wes? So as it happens, we don't actually have the whole truth for you this week because as we were putting the show together, Wes Bell and his wife were having a baby. Welcome Logan Bell to the world. Congratulations to you both. We now have a new Star Citizen in the verse. And that's your aerospace news. At Galactic Inquiry, we're always looking for your creations. And, you know, we really mean it. So why don't you just quit your job and get to work? Here's what we found on the web this week. First up, if you're wanting to get your Arena Commander fix on but don't have the scratch to build a massive PC required by Chris Roberts, well, just watch someone else play the game. Matt Anderson, better known as BadNewsBaron on Twitch TV, regularly streams his live gameplay inside the verse. And he recently had a bit of fun playing as another well-known character.
Socrates, you will learn the power of the dark side. What is this music? Brian!
Oh, are you still here?
Stop the music.
Target acquired.
These guns do nothing. They are underpowered and they need to be buffed. Chris Roberts, if you are listening to this, you need to buff the Aurora for the glory of the Empire.
Look for an interview with BadNewsBaron in a future episode of Galactic Inquiry. And while we're flitting around a broken moon in our favorite fighter, check out this rather detailed video Paul Steffan's created, illustrating the various advantages of the 3D Connection Space Navigator 6 Degrees of Freedom Flight Controller in Arena Commander. Want to land on the deck of that space platform? Well, no problem. Want to take full advantage of the decoupled mode? Well, get cracking. Up next, the Night Wardens organization. At only 27 members strong, this group is paying it forward in a major way. Check out their 125-page Star Citizen Admirer's Manual, a compendium of all things Star Citizen. It's a bit heavy on text and could use a few more renderings and illustrations from the huge collection available around the community, but it's a great resource for any citizen wanting to dig into the minutiae of the verse. Be sure to check out Night Wardens in their RSI org and their very robust website. Now, I've been around the verse a bit, and I can tell you that...
Peoples of Earth, for many centuries, we have collected the corpses lying behind your dryer chambers and under your beds of rot and filth and kept them... What this word? Beep beep. Cryogenic storage, until that time that our science learned to bring them back to life. Using our advanced alien technology, we have resurrected these socks into a formidable sock army, capable of outnumbering you 2 to 1. We have sent nanobot swarms into your homes to release the socks you have kept imprisoned there. Unleash the zombie horde! Prepare for your destruction! The apocalypse you have perpetrated onto our kind for so long has turned tide! Say hello to your new master, Viewmaster!
Whoa, hey, how cute, zombie sock puppets. You know, they're adorable.
Oh, they're so cute.
Well, that was random. In closing, Carla and Dan insisted I share this recent portrait painted by David Perez. Now, I'm always a little stunned when someone does something like that, so I just have to say, wow, thank you. You know, it makes me look rather contemplative when in reality I'm more like, squirrel! Anyway, thanks to everybody. Thanks to BadNewsBaron, Paul Steffan, Night Wardens org, and David Perez. You're on this week's Fan Frequency. Earlier this week, Rob Irving made a date with a pretty girl. Here's how it turned out.
You invited my hair on the way over. It's very sad.
Hey Rob, let me like to meet Alex. She's the owner.
Cutting my hair off.
Okay.
So you want to take them on back and get started?
I had all this time to prepare, and now it's important. Ready.
This is MJ.
Can I take your hair down?
Sure. I'm not taking it all off yet. Give me a little chance to get used to having just a little hair, and then I'll go. I'll check on that. The braiding process is. Yeah, I didn't realize it was part of the. You send it to Lots of Love or to Pantene?
We send it to Lots of Love.
Okay.
Well, it's a dramatic change, Ron.
The 3 braids. If you're. Alright.
That one's not going. That's the rebel hair. It doesn't want to go. Wait, like
Just fill up this this first part.
Okay.
Just so you can get.
I'm gonna redact all this, man.
And of course, that's lead designer Rob Irving. Hey Rob, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, man.
Welcome. So that was a little traumatic, wasn't it?
It was shocking, less shocking than the first time, but still, it's a change in your perception of yourself to make that big of a change to your hair.
So this is the second time you've done it?
Third Locks of Love. Fourth time I've cut it off. First time I didn't realize that was a possibility, but yeah. So this time I actually grew it out explicitly for the purpose of donating it. I knew it was the last time. The last time I swore was the last time. I'm like, okay, one more time, because I'm too lazy to cut my hair. And so I just let it go, and I knew it was destined for this particular purpose. So it was kind of a relief to get to that point and go, okay, now it's the last time for sure, unless it's not.
So
I've already been thinking about it, to be honest. It's like, maybe I'll do it again. We'll see.
All right, okay. So there's you're working on the Persistent Universe, which is kind of still a work in progress. We haven't released any serious elements from that yet.
We've got the hangar.
Yeah, well, the hangar, but I'm not sure I can kind of put something somewhere and expect it to be there when I get back.
No, persistence is not a thing yet. It's really, everything in the Persistent Universe is a question of how many programmers can I steal at any given time and for how long. And invariably, no matter which resource you get assigned to the team, at some point, something big will come up and zoom, there they go again.
Right. Well, at least I don't have to reset the barrels in a big stack every time I leave.
That's true. We will make sure that when we do get persistence, the barrels come back the way they're supposed to.
So listen, you and I go a long way back.
We've
almost worked together a lot of times.
Yeah, we've almost worked together or sort of worked nearby each other. I mean, Origin, so my very first job was Origin.
What did you do?
And you were
first?
there. My very, very, very first job in the game industry was as a TDA, which is Technical Design Assistant, which was completely made up.
Well, most jobs were being made up at the time.
Yeah, well, there was no design department at Origin when I got there.
Really?
So we created the design department at Origin. It was
by the time I got to Origin, there was a concept of a design discipline.
The TDAs kind of got together and sort of hashed out what a designer was and how you described that job. It was mostly like, it was Richard and Chris who were the creatives, the visionaries who sort of ran things, and then the programmers. And design was sort of an afterthought. So the TDAs initially were really just do all the jobs the programmers don't want to do.
Well, back in the day when you were the designer, programmer, and artist, and just creating things on floppy disks and plastic bags, there was no reason for a separate concept of that discipline. But so you guys sort of carved out that niche.
We did, and we were moving away from the whole garage band, three guys in a garage making a game to structured teams and very structured roles. So, I mean, it was a really neat part of being at Origin, watching that evolve and seeing, hey, this is a real thing now. Design is actually a job you want to do.
So you did Strike Commander. What else did you do after that?
Strike Commander, then Pacific Strike, which I still am very proud of, although I think it might finally run on a modern machine. It was
Chris
a little
has always
chunky.
been pushing the envelope,
Well,
hasn't he?
Pacific Strike was Eric Hyman. Chris was off doing Wing Commander
right,
at that point. Yeah, so I did Pacific Strike because World War II planes are really cool.
Yeah.
And that engine for Strike Commander was perfectly suited for doing a World War II game. So, and then I went on to do Wing Commander 3 and Wing Commander 3 3DO.
3DO.
That is.
You went to 3DO?
I did 3DO, yeah. Well, Wing Commander 3 3DO was my first experience with that platform, which was funny because later on I would end up working for their Austin studio.
Yeah.
But that is one of the only games I've worked on that I have art in the game.
You have art?
I am not an artist. I am not an artist. But I was responsible for taking the ships and busting them down to lower poly counts. Oh. Because, well, the ships as they were in Wing 3 were not going to work on the 3DO at all.
Oh, no.
So
I remember I actually went to work for 3DO as well. So we sort of worked together. There's
a lot of overlap.
Yeah, it was in 2001. And I have a little story for you. I came on late in 2001 to start helping with, maybe it was a Pacific,
probably an Army man or something. I don't know.
Well, I was kind of working on capital sea ships, so carriers and destroyers.
Land, Sea, and Air.
Land, Sea, and Air.
Land, Sea, and Air. Yeah.
And I was kind of helping them with getting some of those assets sorted out, and they were heading towards the release of their latest version of, I think, Warriors of Might and Magic. I can't remember what it was.
That's the one I worked on.
And it was great. It's like, okay, I was kind of working contract from home, just kind of filling out the rest of the year. And they were headed toward that release, and that release happened on September 11th, 2001. And after that, the company was already in a pretty shaky situation, and that was sort of the final death blow. And about 3 weeks later, we were all out of a job.
Oh yeah, I remember that meeting actually.
So yeah, that was an interesting experience. And so we were both out of a job.
One of the many jobs I have not quit.
So I went on to join Eric at Fever Pitch in 2002, and you went on to...
I went to Universal in LA.
Vivendi, right?
Yes, I was actually, it was Vivendi Universal then. That was right before the big breakup with NBC, and everything went crazy there.
You ended up being...
I was
a producer.
I was a producer.
You were working
external producer.
You were the publisher.
I was the publisher.
You were the evil man we were working for.
I was the small voice at the bottom of the pile trying to keep things sane. That's how I look at it. I was not the evil empire.
We understood the position you were in, and we were working on the Lord of the Rings franchise that Universal Vivendi had bought.
The book license. This it's hard to explain to people. It's like, yeah, those Lord of the Rings games were really cool. Yeah, the ones that EA made. No, those were not ours.
No. As far as everyone's concerned, Aragorn is Viggo Mortensen. That's it.
It's over. Yeah, the discussion is over.
Universal couldn't use Viggo Mortensen. They had to use their own interpretations based on the
license
books.
wouldn't allow us to do anything that looked like the movie because they had split the license. Yeah. And so it was... It's like, how many ways can you envision a guy in gray with a pointy hat and a long white beard? I mean, seriously.
And a pointy nose.
It's like, there's only one Gandalf image that you ever had in your head, even when you read the book. So
we were writing the role. We were working on the role playing game.
You guys were working on a really fabulous role playing game.
Yeah, we were working with Win McLaughlin, who was a great writer, and we built an entire story of this alternate trip through Middle Earth. As events were happening around you and everything was descending into darkness,
which
you
was
were
very
on your own journey. And we had this whole light side, dark side concept where you could make choices either selfishly or as a contributor, and your experience would shift too. But yeah, that all got shut down when they shut down the entire license.
Yeah, they pulled the plug on that. Universal had not been very successful with console games anyway, but yeah, they pulled the plug on the whole Lord of the Rings franchise, which sent me to Seattle.
Right.
So I could work at Sierra, which I still love having that name on my resume because Sierra is old school awesome.
What did you do at Sierra?
I worked on, well, I found out that they had pulled the plug on the Lord of the Rings franchise the day I got to Seattle. Oh. And I walked into the office and they're like, yeah, the Lord of the Rings is dead. So I'm like, well, what am I doing here?
Oh, no.
And they
That's
said,
not a good place
well,
to be.
you can work on SWAT 4 or you can work on SWAT 4. That was basically that day.
That's not a very memorable.
It was a funny day, sort of in hindsight. But
well, so how did you end up over at Cloud Imperium Games? Yeah.
Well, besides the fact that Sierra shut down too, and so I came back to Austin to work for Eric again at Gizmondo.
We cannot get away from that guy.
It's a never-ending story.
He keeps calling us up, dude.
And that's what happened. I left after Gizmondo. There's not a word for it.
Let's not talk
in
about
our
that.
language. Yeah.
If you want to learn about Gizmondo, a company that we were working with, just Google "crash of Gizmondo" and read the Wired article. You can learn all about the people we were working for. They were wonderful.
It's a beautiful article. But yeah, so after that was like my 4th layoff, I guess. So at that point I was pretty much done with the game industry. So I went and became a programmer at a timesheet software company. Timesheets, yes,
that is so pathetic.
That is very, very real.
So
that's really grown-up job.
That's
right there. Yeah. And then Eric calls me out of the blue. I'm on my way. I was going on vacation with my family. I was actually going to Disney World, and got the call as I was at the airport leaving town. And Eric's like, "Hey, you want to work in games again?" I'm like, okay. It was like a 30-second call. And so that was it. Brought me in, talked to Chris again after, it had been 20 years since I had been working with Chris. And here we are back again.
So now, you're the lead designer of the Pacific Universe, but Chris is a very hands-on person. So,
very much.
How does that work with kind of your niche and him kind of providing a overall kind of concept?
The way it works best is, Chris is constantly pushing everything to be, not this good, that good. Mm-hmm. And so the way we work on it is we take little chunks of it off at a time and do, get it here and then get it here. And so we're prototyping everything in very early stages.
Right.
But the goal is to get everything functioning and then slowly push that bar forward.
Refining it through a series of iterative loops.
Yeah.
Right.
So
well, that kind of brings us to the kind of something that's a big deal right now on the forums: ship stats. Now,
not the ship stats.
There's been a lot of fear and loathing on the forums about ship stats, and we're alluding here to the design process. So tell us a little bit about what the challenge of any subsystem in a game is, but in this case, what's going on with ship stats?
Well, the particular challenge with this game, and it's really why it's such a big challenge, is that because we've been so open and so communicative about things, I mean, they're seeing the real process, how it actually goes, which is you put something down on paper that you go, that's awesome. And then
and then you game it.
You finally get all the programmers and artists together and get it something made and it's working, and then you look at it and you play with it and you go, that's not awesome. Exactly. And so you scrap all that and then you redo the design.
Well, it's a painful process.
It's a very painful process, and it's also...
And now the viewers and the fans of the game get to watch the entire process.
They're sharing the pain.
They are sharing the pain.
But that's, I mean, the ship stats, I mean, I opened the thread on the forums to get feedback on it.
Oh, that was your mistake.
You could call it a mistake.
There's
been great feedback. They've been very helpful. I mean, actually, some of my favorite stuff is when they complain about our obviously Google translated foreign names for ship parts. That has been quite entertaining.
Right.
We've learned some valuable lessons about speaking French and German. But yeah, the idea of it is that it's only going to be final when we have final art for a ship and it's in the game and we're playing with it.
Be careful of that word final, though, right?
As final as it's going to get until we change it again.
Exactly, because it is a persistent universe and it will evolve. There will be constant tuning in response to the dynamics of the way it's played, I guess.
Yeah, and our goal is to have everything have its own place in the universe. So things are going to constantly change as we figure out how they precisely fit next to one another. But, you know, there's never a final answer.
So your message to the community is chill out.
Don't panic every time we change the numbers, because they're going to change again.
And it doesn't, it's irrelevant right now. No one's playing with these numbers.
Exactly. Right, it's like herd soccer. You watch it, and we'll put up a new ship stats page, and then everyone will go melt down their ships and buy a new one that's now the currently overpowered one. And but you know, in 2 months that's going to be a different one. Why everyone just settle down?
Yeah,
it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And that's the challenge too, because it's not just a stats game. It's also some skill. There's also and of course there's a little bit of chance involved.
And there's a lot of hidden stuff too. It's like you're getting a set of numbers that arbitrarily represent a spaceship. They don't fully represent.
And we're not rolling dice here.
No, dice rolls are bad.
Yes, this is not dice rolls. Well, listen, Rob, really enjoyed having you on. Thanks for taking the time to get your hair cut with us and share that experience.
It was a wonderful experience. It was much different than the other times because, well, being on camera always changes everything. But I'm sure they were a little freaked out by the whole thing, too.
They were loving it. And
they were very generous.
Very gracious people. And they've invited us back.
Awesome. Yeah. I will have to come back there at some point.
Well, thanks, Rob. Great to have you,
sir.
It's always great to have a nice spirited discussion with Rob. Next week, Logante joins us for a fireside chat. If you want to become a Patreon backer, join us and enjoy the benefits of supporting a show by and for the fans. And if you prefer, you can support us with a one-off payment rather than being billed monthly by reaching out at pledge@galacticinquiry.com. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll get a ping each time we publish a new video. Or just keep in touch through your favorite social portal. Links to Galactic Inquiry sites may be found on our website and in the YouTube blog below. This show belongs to you, the Star Citizen community, so be sure to give us your feedback on our Galactic Inquiry subreddit. And of course, the centerpiece of our show is fan creation. If you have something cool to share, send it in, and if it doesn't suck, we will show it. And remember, we are listening.